Hello and welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60. So on this episode, I want to get CAN bus, or the CAN bus link working between the Reflex and MHD Plus, and I should clarify, it is the Reflex Plus. And I also want to see if I wind my boost down, does it still spit coolant out? So it should be an interesting video. We're going to play with wastegate duty cycle and just see how it affects how this turbo kit responds to duty cycle changes. Now, before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping I have to get out of the way. Guys, the Buy Me a Coffee is going really, really well. I am at 9% of my monthly goal for the memberships. That includes the business support. I'm gonna keep annoying everyone until we get there. If anybody knows any businesses that wanna advertise with 0 to 60, please get in touch. I've had, I think 3 businesses now actually get in touch, so hopefully we're gonna be able to make this happen. But it's happening because of you, and I really appreciate everyone. And also, just so that you know, the 0 to 60 store, we are still running that 25% off. I've still got a few products left. I'm just trying to clear out the old stock. And yeah, we'll revamp it. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I need to get some money in to get into the new shop. But yeah, 25% off if you use the code NEWSHOP. Now let's get into today's video, because right here, I have a laptop that's off. But I'll turn it back on and let's talk about a few things. Okay, we are back in there. So, let's see what we're looking at. So in here, I have my Reflex Plus in Tuner Pro. Now I say my Reflex Plus, this is the map file that Ken originally sent me. And you can see we are now at version 3. We started off with no boost. We've made a few changes on version 2. I can't even remember what we did on version 3. It might have been a port, not a port injection. Yeah, we changed port injection flow. That's what we did. Anyway, moving forwards, we want to now turn on the CAN bus output. So if anybody doesn't realize, the CAN bus is, think of it as a network. It is, that's all it is. It's a network that runs through the car, and a lot of the powertrain modules, they're all on that specific CAN bus, and they talk to each other, and that's how your traction control works. That's how the engine talks to the transmission. That's how even like the airbag system, it all talks through the CAN bus. So it is quite a fast system, but there is so much information on a BMW PT CAN. It is incredible. When you watch the raw CAN bus readout, it's like watching the Matrix in hyperspeed. But that's how these things work. And these are quite old cars now. Anyway, the Reflex taps into that CAN bus and it pays attention to a few addresses. So the DME actually transmits boost control over CAN bus. I don't know why it does that. If anybody knows why the factory DME does that, let me know. Maybe not boost control, but wastegate duty cycle targets. And the Reflex can also transmit back to the DME. So depending on how you set up the Reflex and the MHD install, you can actually use the CAN bus to send information back to the DME. Now, to get it all starting to work, the first thing you need to actually enable is in the Reflex is the CAN bus setup. Now you can see they have a few different modes here, and basically this is just written into the firmware on the Reflex, and it triggers certain CAN bus addresses to do certain things. Motive and MHD, they've set up the B58s and the N54, I assume, to use the same CAN bus addresses. So we're gonna apply the patch here. We will click apply. And then I'm going to save it as my V4 map. I'm just gonna save it as we keep going, but I wanna get it separated from the rest. So we get V4 saved, and then I can load the V4 on, and we know we're gonna have CAN bus turned on. Now, you can actually do a few different things with the CAN bus settings. Let me just go through those now. So you can see we have MHD CAN bus output. That is the, I don't know if you can see there, we have aux1 and aux2. Now in the Reflex setup, I've got aux1 connected to my MAC valve, and aux2 is connected to the secondary fuel pump through the solid state relay, which was a fun thing to learn about. And you can actually directly control them within the map in MHD. MHD is sending out data over these CAN bus addresses. The Reflex is gonna register those CAN bus addresses, and it can output it. So you can actually tune a single turbo wastegate duty cycle through an MHD map, and the Reflex will just relay that information. Now, I'm not gonna do that today. I'm still gonna leave the Reflex doing all the boost control, but I was talking to Ken about it a couple of weeks ago, and he said the benefit of that is, with the new MHD Plus, you can have true boost by gear, which means even with these big single turbos, you could actually have wastegate pressure in first gear, you could run 20 PSI in second, and then wind it out to 30 PSI in third, or however you want to do it. I think he actually said there might be even a smarter way of doing boost by gear, like boost by gear, boost by RPM, but full control within MHD, and then the Reflex will just target boost based on what MHD is telling it to target. Hope that makes sense. But I'm going to leave all that disabled for now because my map from Ken is not set up for this at all. But yeah, all you need to do is basically just in this top one, make sure that that's patched. So let's go load it into the car and see what it does. I almost forgot. Let's also change some boost settings. So we're going to boost control, and I have my boost control base wastegate duty cycle. So Ken set this up for me, and he basically made an assumption that this 40% wastegate duty cycle is going to be the right amount of boost to hit 25 PSI based on my turbo manifold and the wastegate setups. Don't forget, everything in the turbo system will affect what 40% wastegate duty cycle will equate to at the boost gauge. So I've got a G35 1050, I've got twin 40mm wastegates on Adam's JMC tuning manifold. 40% wastegate duty cycle was Ken's assumption to test, and in third gear it hits 25.2 PSI I think, and just stays rock solid on it. So it's perfect for getting it dialed in to start with. However, in the higher gears, that boost does creep up a little bit, but that is just an effect of the extra load on the car. In the higher gears with the extra load, 40% wastegate duty cycle will make more boost. That's a trait. That thing happens with standard N54 turbos as well. You need to reduce wastegate duty cycle in the higher gears. Now, there are some calculations that go on in the back end of the Reflex, which we have in this PID section. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. And this is really where you need your tuner to know what he's doing and know how to set it up. I'm not going to mess with any of that because Ken has set it up based on what he thinks works for him. But you basically, all of these, the PID, it all bounces off each other, the KP, the KI, and the KD. It all bounces off each other to hit target based on your base settings. Now, I'm going to be a bit of a lazy man. I'm just going to change it, my base setting to 30. For every RPM and save. So that's now my base wastegate duty cycle, and without changing my target or anything, it will now make less boost, I think. But let's also turn my PSI target down as well. So we were targeting 25 PSI when we've got full or better than E60 fuel in the tank. I'm gonna now wanna target 22 PSI, and we'll see if that gives me a chance of keeping the coolant in the coolant passages in the block, which I'm kind of hoping it will, but we'll go and do some tests in this video. All right, guys, I'm now gonna get that loaded onto the car, get the car warmed up. I've got to go and do a post run because you guys are using the promo code on 0to60.com. I really appreciate it. And you'll see me for some point of view pulls. Well, it'll be a second for you, but it'll be about an hour for me. See you guys shortly. So yeah, that's all you need to change. When you load MHD Plus, you just need to set how your ethanol content analyzer is connected to the DME. If you are doing what I'm doing, where it used to be working like it was a motive sensor, just connect it the same way. Have that setting done. The other thing that someone has just made a comment, and it's just come through, they've asked about how to wire the Reflex into CAN bus. So you've got two CAN bus wires and coming out of the Reflex, and I'll show you a wiring diagram here. These are the pins that you need to connect to make it all work. So you just need to connect those two CAN bus wires on the Reflex into those 2 points on the DME. I cannot remember the pin numbers, but you'll see them on the screen, and you can just use the T-taps which were provided with my Reflex. Anyway, let's get this thing warmed up and we'll see what the boost is doing. So, as normal, my half an hour to film a video has turned into 3 hours. I can't get the Reflex to connect with the DME. I've checked wiring, I've reflashed, I've checked everything in the Reflex. I am getting no communication between the Reflex over CAN bus and the DME. So I don't know why that is, but I just want to show you guys exactly what we're doing. I've just done a restart and we are connected, and if I push that, okay, you can see here we have the fuel pressure at 72, which lines up with the low pressure sensor on MHD. However, the aux sensor here should be displaying the same. Now this is actually the sensor that's in the fuel rail. When MHD Plus came out, Scott, one of the 0-60 members, he installed it and his worked straight away. I've messaged him and said, did you do anything weird? And he said he didn't, but his has stopped working as well. So maybe it's some of the updates that have come out for MHD Plus. I don't know. If anybody does know, let me know below. But as of right now, both Scott and myself, we have no connection, where Scott did have one before. Something weird's going on. I'm sure there'll be a fix for it. But for now, I need to make it to the post office and then we'll go and see how this thing actually boosts. That sounds like a better plan. Oh, and if it's a bit cooler now. Okay, so you might have seen in that clip, we still hit 25.8 PSI. Now, I've just wound the wastegate duty cycle down again. I don't know why the wastegate duty cycle being lowered from 40 to 30 still hit exactly the same boost target. Exactly the same boost, 25.8. So something's going astray. CAN bus isn't working. And also, I mentioned it the other day, my DCT, ever since it was parked up for a month, has never been the same. It was flaring in the very first single turbo drive video that I did. And it sort of sorted itself out under load. But now, let me show you what happens when I try and take off. Because I'm going to just baby it home and call it quits, I think. The car is not right. Something's not right. I did reflash XHP yesterday as well. Something that is weird, this car doesn't have creep enabled, but when I let my foot off the brake, it creeps. And I'll show you what happens when I try and accelerate. So much clutch slip. That's terrible. Yeah, I'm just gonna head home. All right, I'll give you an update when I get back. Still sounds cool. You just thudded into gear then. While we're talking, I have also done an adaptations, clutch adaptations. Something weird is going on with the DCT because the clutch is actually adapted fine. Interesting. So you guys will see what happens when I try and take off from a set of lights. Hopefully that lets you see the... I'd say the steering column is touching the... Shit. Steering column's touching the downpipe. That was alright, but that was a lot of pedal input. Should we see if anti-lag does anything in the dry? Let's test anti-lag. Oh, it broke. Something didn't like it. Something didn't like it. We may have overboosted. We may have hit a boost cut. 29 PSI. Whoops. And I'm sure you can see it, but now we have an engine light. So everything's gone wrong. How good is that? I'll give you an update when I get back to the house. Okay, so I made it back home. But we now have... Gotta love cars. The CAN bus did not work into MHD. Don't know why that is. The DCT slip on take-up is getting worse and worse and worse. I need to work out what that is. I'm going to stop driving it until I've worked out what's going on there. It's flashbacks of the 8 HP URO oil pan where it just didn't have clutch pressure. However, this, once you get moving, it doesn't slip. It snaps into gear quite nicely. And also if I go straight to like half throttle, be really jerky on take up, it takes up fine. It doesn't take up, it takes up way too gradually and it just keeps slipping the clutch instead of letting the clutches bite. It's almost like the transmission can't see the road speed. I don't know, it's something weird going on. I need to work out what it is. There's no errors on the transmission, and I think I mentioned it before. I did reflash XHP yesterday in case it had just forgotten or not learnt. I've reset adaptations in ISTA, but I will let everybody know once I work out what it is. I haven't mentioned it because I just didn't know what it is, and it's a weird fault. Don't know why the reflex lowering boost wastegate duty cycle didn't lower boost. And I'm pretty sure that the stutter that we had on the highway when I was anti-lagging was due to an overboost. Because you can see there, we did hit 29 PSI. So I need to stop driving the car. Things are not right, which isn't great. I know it has not sprayed any more coolant out, but we didn't really load it up then or get on it much. That was all pretty gentle stuff. Bugger. Fail video. That's what it's all about. All right, guys. Well, guys, it's the next day. I didn't want to just throw this video out without trying to work out what's going on. However, I'm now about 8 hours into trying to diagnose it, and I cannot work out why the DCT is flaring so much, taking off. Done lots of searching, and I cannot find anyone with the same symptoms. If anybody knows, please let me know. It's really confusing. The DCT, the clutches do not slip on a 28 PSI gear shift in this thing. So I think the clutches are okay, but for some reason the car just doesn't want to take off properly. And I've ended up flashing it back to a stock DCT tune, and you drive it up the road, and obviously with the stock tune, it's got creep fully enabled, so it lurches forwards when you let your foot off the brake. However, I'm still doing well, I'm getting halfway down the street before the clutch is actually engaged properly. So it's still slipping the clutch, revving to like 1500, 1800 RPM all the way down the street, which it shouldn't do. It should engage within a couple of car lengths. It should be fully engaged and not slipping the clutch. On top of that, I did have a couple of O2 sensor codes that have popped up ever since the single turbo's gone on. The O2 sensor that was in this car, which is this little sucker here, it was a genuine Bosch one, but I put it in, I think the week that I went roll racing for the very first time back in 2020. So it's been in and out of a few cars, a few engines, and maybe it's been knocked, I don't know, but every now and again it does just drop off, and it was actually leaving a code in the DME. I have fitted a new oxygen sensor, which is so easy on a single turbo. It took like 2 minutes. And then all I had to do, I also needed to undo the rear O2 on bank 2. The way that Ken tunes the single turbos, he doesn't need bank 2 plugged in. And I was wondering if that was relating to the O2 code I was getting. However, on a log every now and again, the O2 would just, for a split second, it would spike onto the maximum lean reading. So I'm fairly confident that was dying. And hey, it's done its fair time. Now, I really wanted to get this fixed before I put this video out. Most of what you've seen was actually all filmed yesterday. I've done probably another hour's worth of reading on why the reflex isn't showing on the DME, on MHD. Can't work that out either. And I've just noticed, whilst I've been in here playing with the car, it's got a coolant leak as well. Man, these things really do test you. They really do test you. So now that I've seen the coolant leak, I'm sort of at the point where I'm just going to put this video out because it just seems to be never ending with this car since the turbo kit's gone on. We'll get there. We'll get there. I hope. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Thanks everyone that is joining in on the Buy Me a Coffee. It is really appreciated. It really does make me feel amazing, the support that we have. I feel really bad that my car keeps breaking, because I want to show you guys some cool content, and it's just broken all the time, like all the time. I'm like, it's my fault. I'm just learning as I go. Anyway, guys, I will update you. Jake has said I can actually drop it, well, I can take it to his workshop tonight, so we'll get it up in the air and I'll see if I can work out what that coolant is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a water pump. I did buy this water pump brand new, but that was in 2019 when it went on, when I first got the car. So it's probably due for another water pump. Hopefully it is the water pump, because that's probably the easiest thing to get to. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Oh, also, I don't know if I filmed it or not. I'll see when I go and edit this shortly. The wastegates weren't working properly yesterday. This had actually come off, that vacuum line. I don't know how it still made 25 PSI, but that might be why it didn't actually reduce boost when I adjusted wastegate duty cycle. I just need some sleep. I'm not that bummed out. I'm frustrated because I'm letting you guys down and not having a car that's working. I'm not that annoyed about this, but I feel like I failed. Anyway, I'll go and edit this lovely video. Alright guys, I'll give you an update once I know what's going on. If it's anything too drastic, this thing's going into storage until I get a shed, because it's a nightmare. I've got a lot of footage of this single turbo kit screaming, so there will be more videos coming out on it, but they would have just been filmed in the past. And I'll get that Flomax car back and see if I can break something on that, which I probably will. All right, guys, catch ya.